Let's jump right into today's explainer. We're heading back to the freezing, howling winds of a 1989 Pittsburgh winter to unpack a truly chilling true crime mystery. This is one of those cases, a brilliant young life cut tragically short, a crime scene that completely baffled seasoned detectives, and some seriously clever, old-school police work that finally caught a monster. Listen to this terrifying warning from an FBI profiler. Catch him because he's done it before and he'll do it again. That instantly sets the stakes, right? When local police handed the details of this crime over to the FBI's Behavioral Sciences Unit, the profiler took one look and realized there was some deeply disturbed psychology at play here. The clock was ticking, and investigators were absolutely terrified this predator was going to strike again at any moment. Now, to really understand this tragedy, we need to set the scene. Picture Pittsburgh in 1989. You've got this icy, brutal winter clashing against a city that was rapidly becoming a highly sought-after, incredibly safe haven for medical professionals. The city was shaking off its Rust Belt reputation, transforming into a thriving hub for education and cutting-edge medicine, especially a children's hospital. It boasted super low homicide rates, and honestly, it was exactly that reputation for safety that drew top medical talent from all over the country. Which brings us to a heartbreaking contrast. Let me introduce you to Dr. Jeffrey Farkas. He was a 26-year-old pediatric intern who playfully called himself Mr. Stomach, just to make sick kids smile. He'd purposefully moved to Pittsburgh for its safety after dealing with severe, violent trauma in a Detroit ER. By all accounts, Jeff was notoriously kind. Case in point, on the frigid Sunday night he was murdered, he actually went back out into the cold just to jumpstart a friend's car battery. But then, just hours later, around 4 a.m., his roommate comes back to their quiet house in Squirrel Hill. He finds Jeff's wallet strewn across the kitchen floor, a bloody knife, and a totally unimaginable nightmare upstairs in the bathroom. Okay, when detectives walked in, they were met with a baffling level of overkill. This wasn't just a murder, it was an absolute display of rage and bizarre theatrical staging. The scene looked like a bomb went off. Dr. Farkas had been viciously attacked with multiple weapons found just lying around the house. The killer broke a heavy porcelain toilet tank top over him, used a heavy metal andiron from downstairs, and swung with such intense force that 4 knives and a pair of scissors were literally bent and broken. And chillingly, a vacuum cord was tied around Jeff's neck using this incredibly complex, unusual knot. Oh, and a wooden Caribbean mask, a cherished gift from Jeff's parents, was placed near the body, stabbed directly in the eyes. So you have to ask yourself, was this just a random act of violence or a deeply personal message from someone Jeff actually knew? Because stabbing a childhood mask directly in the eyes usually points to a deep personal vendetta. It felt like the killer was spitting in their faces, leaving a twisted theatrical message. Plus, there were absolutely zero signs of forced entry. No broken windows, no busted locks. So naturally, police initially assumed Jeff must have let his killer in. Or maybe it was someone who already had a key. The investigation instantly explodes into high gear. Detectives are literally racing against the melting dawn snow to preserve massive size 13 footprints found outside. First responders actually had to spray a special chemical onto the snow just so the heat of their casting material wouldn't melt those intricate shoe treads. And remember that FBI warning? The pressure was immense. Thankfully, their swift statewide broadcast for Jeff's missing 1989 Acura paid off big time when they found it abandoned about 3 miles away, just across the Monongahela River in Homestead. But then, the investigation hits these incredibly frustrating dead ends. They systematically clear perfectly good suspects. Jeff's roommates, alibis verified. Local known criminals, cleared. They even tracked down a guy named Jamal Jackson. This guy perfectly matched a neighbor sketch of a suspicious person knocking on doors near Jeff's house that night asking for a fake woman named Cindy. Jamal routinely wore the exact green army jacket and backpack witnesses described. But astonishingly, his alibi totally checked out and his shoe size didn't even come close to those massive sized 13 prints. Back to square one. So, out of an entire ransacked house and neighborhood canvas, what did the police actually have? Almost nothing. Just a giant shoe print and one tiny partial thumbprint on the bathroom door. The crime lab processed hundreds of prints from the house, and they all belonged to Jeff or his friends, except for this one. But here's the catch. The fingerprint tech noticed a bizarre anomaly. There was a distinct straight line across the bottom of the thumbprint. That meant the killer was wearing a Band-Aid on his thumb during the murder. Then, they catch a major break. Detectives are retracing steps near where the car was dumped and hit up a local fast food spot. A manager there vividly remembers a customer in an army jacket ordering a triple cheeseburger on that freezing night. When detectives ask, hey, how tall was he? Like 6'3", 6'4"? The manager corrects them. Actually, scratch that, they said. No, we mean tall like somebody who would be the center on a basketball team. We're talking 6'8". Now, think about doing this without the automated computer databases we have today. Investigators had to use brilliant, old-school logic to filter hundreds of files down to one man. They go to the parole office and pull records for every single person recently released from prison in the Homestead area. Staring at huge stacks of files, they apply a strict filter. Throw out anyone 6'4" and below, look for history of burglary, and pinpoint that massive 6'8" height. And boom, the filter produces William Yarbo, a giant of a man hiding in plain sight. He was exactly 6'8", 24 years old, a recently paroled burglar, and get this, working as a fast food cook right down the road from where he dumped the victim's car. Detectives pull his fingerprint card from the archive, compare it to that lone partial print from the bathroom door, and it is a perfect match. Once they had the right guy, everything just locked together flawlessly. When police show up at Yarbo's workplace to arrest him, his size 13 work shoes are just sitting there by his locker. The tread matches the snow impressions perfectly, and forensics actually find a drop of Dr. Farkas's blood still on the shoe. But it gets even crazier. As they're slapping the handcuffs on William Yarbo, what do they see? A Band-Aid wrapped right around his finger, the exact anomaly that left that straight line in the bloody thumbprint. But we still have to answer for those weird anomalies at the crime scene, right? Well, detectives tied that incredibly complex vacuum cord knot directly back to Yarbo's past. Remember how baffled police were by it? It wasn't a standard shoelace knot or a necktie. By digging into his background, investigators found out Yarbo had been sent to a camp for troubled youth years prior, and one of the primary skills they taught at that camp? Specialized knot tying. It was a terrifyingly specific signature left right there at the scene. And then there's the Caribbean mask. This is the most chilling part. Yarbo hadn't targeted Jeff personally. He was just a burglar going door to door in the cold, looking for places to rob. By sheer fatal bad luck, a latch had been left unlocked. Yarbo was inside, ransacking the house for VCRs and cameras, when Jeff came home early. Now, Yarbo harbored this dark obsession with slasher films, specifically Freddy Krueger. So when he was confronted by the homeowner, he escalated a standard burglary into a horrific cinematic fantasy, using that mask as a twisted, theatrical prop to simulate the gore he watched on screen. Justice actually moved incredibly fast on this one. Exactly 1 year to the day after the horrifying crime, a jury took only 3 hours to make sure the winter monster would never walk the streets of Pittsburgh again. I mean, the evidence was absolutely overwhelming. The bloody thumbprint, the size 13 snow impressions, the victim's blood on his shoe, the exact modus operandi of the knots and neighborhood canvassing, the defense literally had nothing. On December 3, 1990, William Yarbo was found guilty of first-degree murder, locking him away for life without parole. Today, Jeff is remembered not for the nightmare of how he died, but for the incredible way he lived. He's actually honored annually at Children's Hospital with an award given to the intern who shows the most compassion. At his funeral, hundreds of people lined up to share stories about how this smiling young doctor touched their lives in just the 6 months he lived in Pittsburgh. His father hit the nail on the head when he said, "I truly do believe in evil and its presence in the world, but I also believe in good, and Jeff was one of the good guys." I'll leave you with this final thought for today's explainer. It's a really stark reminder of how fragile life is, but also about the enduring legacy of a single compassionate soul. The tragedy of Dr. Jeffrey Farkas isn't just about a baffling crime scene or brilliant police work. It's about the void left behind. If a 26-year-old intern could touch hundreds of lives in just 6 months, you really have to wonder, what immeasurable good could he have achieved if he hadn't crossed paths with a monster on that bitter winter night?